The news, good evening. The rehabilitation program for male prisoners is resuming on KOITV and is intended for low-risk prisoners. A first group of 6 will leave for KOITV in the first week of March. Altogether, there will be 18 for this first program. The Prison Service and IDC have signed a memorandum of understanding for this collaboration. Details of the program were given this afternoon during a press conference by the Minister for Internal Affairs, Errol Fonseca, the Superintendent of Prison, Raymond Saint-Ange, the IDC CEO, Glennie Savy, and its Deputy, Christian Lyonnais.
We just had a MOU signed whereby the prison service for low-key prisoners will be sent to IDC in a program where they will be helping in agriculture development in IDC. This is something that has been done before with certain difficulties in the past, but we've had extensive discussions with IDC, prison and IDC, and we're very, very happy now that we've come to a new way of managing this program, and to a point where it will benefit both sides. It's a chance to encourage prisoners to reform themselves, keep active, learn new skills, and hopefully when they finish their sentence, get back to normal life with a skill and a continuation, hopefully. Some of whom might decide to stay and work on the island. Now, the big difference for that is IDC is managing the whole program in terms of what they need to do, in terms of where they're going to work, what skills they're going to develop. And the prison service will, in collaboration with them, will provide certain security measures, but the management of it all is done by IDC.
The National Assembly has begun debate on the 2021 appropriation bill presented this week by the Minister for Finance, Nadi Hassan. As is customary, today's session began with the reply of the Leader of the Opposition, Sébastien Pillay.
Right from the onset, the Leader of the Opposition, Sébastien Pillay, expressed his disappointment with the budget presented by the Minister for Finance. According to Mr. Pillay, the proposed budget is clearly meant to benefit some individuals and businesses and not necessarily the ordinary men and women who are struggling to make ends meet. In particular, Mr. Pillay criticized the decision by the government to make cuts in the employment relief scheme. He said many of those people are helpless and it is premature to adopt such a move. That, he said, means that the have-nots will be left behind, whilst those who are better off thrive. Mr. Pillay spoke of his disapproval at the government's decision to put an end to the scheme FA4GR. He said this is premature. Overall, Mr. Pillay said the government's projections for the year are based on tourism arrivals. Should this not materialize, he said, there is no plan B. According to him, the revenue specified by the Minister for Finance is based on optimism and not reality. The Leader of the Opposition questioned the motives behind the grants the government says it's receiving from foreign donors, what they would require from Seychelles in return. Generally, the Leader of the Opposition said the reforms announced by the government was unfair. According to him, there is political interference in some decisions taken, and he alleged that non-LDS supporters in the public service were being victimized.
The Leader of Government Business in the National Assembly, Bernard Georges, has expressed his appreciation for the government's actions and in particular the measures announced by Minister Hassan to overcome the major challenges the country faces. He was speaking this morning as the National Assembly began debate on the Minister's budget address.
Mr. Georges said he was persuaded that the current government had inherited a country that was broken but not irreparable. He accused the former administration of putting welfare rather than people at the forefront of development, and that resulted in a culture of dependency on the state. He said that was meant to ensure that people relied on the state for everything throughout their lives, rather than given the tools to earn a decent living. He cited the unemployment relief scheme as an example. That, he said, was meant to ensure dependency on the state. What the current government is proposing is to make jobs available for people who want to work to earn a living. Mr. George said the budget presented by the Minister for Finance and the decisions taken by the government will guarantee control and accountability. That, he said, was sorely lacking. He cited the former Smaller Business Financing Agency as an example, where funds simply vanished. Regarding Air Seychelles, the leader of government business said he was happy the government has not yet made a final decision, but he suggested that shares in the company are offered to businesses. He said he did not expect them to make a quick profit, but they could do it out of a sense of patriotism. Regarding the drug scourge in the country, Mr. George was unrelentless in his condemnation for traffickers. He said the government could not continue to spend millions to treat victims of drug abuse and put millions more into A&B to fight traffickers. Seize the assets of drug traffickers and use the money to treat victims and finance the A&B, he suggested.
The deliberations that followed the replies of the Leader of the Opposition and the Leader of Government Business was mostly a partisan debate.
Members of United Seychelles who took the floor felt that the government had placed all its eggs in one basket, which they say is highly dangerous. Some US members felt that the government was relying heavily on grants promised by friendly countries, and they felt that nothing in the budget reflected the promises made by LDS in its electoral manifesto. On the other hand, LDS members who spoke in the National Assembly this morning felt that the country was on its knees as a result of not only the COVID pandemic, but also because systemic corruptions over the past 43 years. They pointed out that a lot of untruths are being circulated with regards to the government's intentions. They include the unemployment relief scheme. LDS members stressed that all persons who are vulnerable and unable to work will continue to benefit under the unemployment relief schemes, and that carers will continue to be employed to look after the sick and the elderly in the community.
The Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Trade has published the names of businesses and individuals which received financial assistance under the Financial Assistance for Job Retention Scheme, the FA4JR. The publishing of the names is in line with the Ministry's vision of ensuring transparency, accountability and good governance. From March to December 2020, the government paid out 1.2 billion rupees to the private sector to assist in payment of salaries for staff employed by the sector. The FA4JR scheme is to be terminated by the end of March to 2021. The first list to be released is in respect of businesses for which funds were disbursed under the FA4JR for the month of December 2020. Seychelles has taken several measures in reforming its territorial tax regime to enable its removal from the European Union list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. The Secretary of State for Finance, Patrick Payet, says for this to happen, the government has introduced new amendments that will also address concerns expressed by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. This concerns exchange of information for tax purposes. Mr. Payet also says the new structure has been set up to look specifically on policy matters on the international financial sector. And finally, the Coast Guard was alerted yesterday by the emergency response team of the stratospheric balloon that was about to land in Seychelles. The balloon, weighing about 70 kilos, landed in the water early this morning, about 3 to 4 kilometers east of Pointe-Ucel. Mr. Sylvain Caburet, who was responsible for the emergency response team, said they had a very short notice. And with this, we end this news summary. Thank you for watching. Have a very pleasant evening.